Welcome back to Founding Footprints, a podcast sponsored by the Virginia 250 Commission in partnership with the Charlottesville Albemarle Convention and Visitors Bureau, the CACVB. I'm Ben Bernard, historian at the University of Virginia. Thank you for listening so far. We've loved hearing from you about our first few episodes. I wanted to mention as well that the CACVB, the Visitors Bureau, has actually created tourist itineraries for thematic visits of the region that pair with each of our episodes. So I hope you'll check them out on their website, visitcharlottesville.org. In today's episode, we'll be looking at an example of a historic property, Hollymead House. Some historic properties and houses in the region have become house museums open to the public. Others, of course, are privately owned. I sat down at the WTJU radio studio with Pam and William Calary, the owners of Hollymead House today. I wouldn't say they're historical reenactors, but they're interested in curating and creating a certain vision of the past. And they do this through architecture, through design, and of course through decorative arts. Would you start by introducing yourselves?
My name is William Calary. We moved to Charlottesville in 2018, and we own the Hollymead House, which is originally named Hollymead.
Pam Calary, co-owner, along with my husband William, of Hollymead House, and we are owners and innkeepers.
That's terrific. Thank you so much for coming into the studio. I'm really excited to meet you and to learn about the house and what it's like to be innkeepers of a historic property. We could start off with, what is Hollymead House?
Hollymead House is a Virginia farmhouse that started out as a log cabin. Legend has it was built by Hessian soldiers that removed themselves from the barracks. We don't know if they actually built it, but we do know that they lived there. And then was expanded to a large farmhouse in 1813. And it was originally 700 acres. Most of its life, it was a 300-acre farm.
And so today it's a large farmhouse and an inn.
It is. It's been completely modernized, but most of the modernization is about 90 years old. So
We run it as a 6-bedroom bed and breakfast. 4 of those rooms and bathrooms are in a guest house that's adjacent to the main property, just separated by a brick patio. That was built in the 80s by previous owners. And then we have 3 bedrooms and bathrooms in the main house, the manor house, one of which we live in or occupy, and the other are 2 additional guest bedrooms.
Okay, so you actually, unlike maybe a lot of Airbnb situations, you are living at the inn, you're kind of taking care of the upkeep.
Yep. It's great to be on site because you don't have to manage another property, and also you want to keep an eye on people who are at your place because there's a lot of work that goes into it. There are a lot of antiques that have been sourced. We also find that people take better care if they know you're there and you're the ones taking care of everything.
They understand the property in a different way. They see the care that goes into it. They get a chance to meet you.
Right.
How did the house come into your life?
we were living in Tampa, Florida, and we had both wanted to come back up to this area, primarily because we liked it and that Pam is a alumnus. This house came on the market, and we won it at the auction.
I think I just loved the landscape of Virginia and UVA, but we also recognized that it had become a destination for travel, for weddings, for special occasions. And so we were hoping we could have a second career earlier on than later to do something that I think we both loved in an area that we felt more connected to than Florida.
Did you come back to Virginia with the intention of looking for a historic property?
Yeah, definitely.
And so in a sense, maybe the period of the house is also tied to the area. Like you wouldn't have gone to another part of the country looking for a mid-century modern house.
This was the area we wanted to be, and we looked at a couple houses, and we actually lost them because we wanted more land than we have, but we're very happy with what we got.
Could you tell me the overview of the history of the house, maybe briefly the different periods that it's gone through?
Yes, we don't know how it happened that the cabin became there. The whole area of 6,000 acres was owned by Thomas Carr. Over the years, it got sold off, and in 1813, Eric Carr sold about 700 acres, which included across 29 to John Jeffries, who had brought his family down from Culpeper. And we believe they built the large federal section onto the log cabin. And they were there probably from 1813 to about almost 100 years. He died about 1850, and then John McLeod, which was his son-in-law, they took it over, and it went through several generations until a man named James Madison Rogers bought it about 1910. And he was a produce and flower farmer. And we have many pictures of him. And I actually used to speak to his granddaughter in New Jersey. And she sent us many photos, and actually the bell her grandmother used to ring on the porch to get the workers in for supper. He sold it in 1936 to BFD Runk. He didn't have much to do with the farm at that time. He was a biology professor, but he added a lot, and he hired Milton Gregg, who had just opened his firm here in Charlottesville after coming off of Williamsburg, the project there. And if you look at the front of the house, you'll see a lot of elements from the George St. Tucker house in Williamsburg that he just kind of used on this house.
I'm hoping that listeners will take a moment to maybe Google the house, but just in case not, would you be willing to describe it? What does it look like when you approach it?
Well, you actually approach the back of the house, and you'll see a large federal-looking house, about a 3-story house with a kitchen attached to it and a porch that extends the whole length of the house with a large section on the left side. If you go around to the front, be a flat section, but they kept adding to the length of it. And there'll be a beautiful porch on the front of the cabin and of the large section as well. And there's a little section that connects two buildings with some archways and little windows. And if you look up the George St. Tucker house in Williamsburg, you'll see the exact same porches and the little arch windows and arches on there as well.
I'd like to ask you a little bit more about this dialogue between the age of revolutions and the 20th century. You mentioned Milton Grigg, who was the architect for D. Runk. And by the way, D. Runk's name is memorialized at UVA today. All the students will know this name because it's one of the most important undergraduate dining halls. What are some of the changes that Runk and Grigg made to the house?
Well, they put electrical and plumbing in the house, which hadn't been in there for over 100 years. They did a lot of woodwork. They just made it a very luxurious house for the dean and expanded the size of it.
When you are taking care of a historic property that has lived through several lives, do you ever have to make some trade-offs in deciding which is the real period of the house that you're trying to replicate?
No, most of the work we have done is put back alterations. It was like a puzzle. It had lived for 50 years almost as a restaurant. And the owners really didn't care what alterations they made. They just wanted to make them so the restaurant could run easier or so forth. When you approach the back, they wanted to make it look like the front. So they had enclosed the porch and put windows in to make it look like the front of the house and put a big hole in the kitchen so they could run food down the hallway to the different dining rooms.
We have a great little connection passageway with beautiful stone floor that we're making into a mudroom, and that's where the commercial dishwasher sat.
Have you encountered any sorts of trade-offs as you've made these renovations between historical authenticity and recapturing a certain federal aesthetic and modern conveniences?
No. We've been lucky to have pictures of all the way it looked way back to 1900. And even though we may want to modernize for our conveniences, we've wanted to put them back exactly the way they were when the house was remodeled in 1936.
I mean, we don't have any ceiling fans. You're not going to find that.
Like the house itself was not painted until 1936 for the first time when it was built in 1813. because it's all hard pine. It's too expensive to paint.
We've kept the rooms exactly the way they are. There aren't any walls that have been busted out. There's no canned lighting. Yeah, I think he's just restored it to, better colors and great, comfortable furniture. Somebody in our reviews said that they felt like they were in an English countryside.
Pam, I'd love to hear more about your role as an innkeeper.
What I enjoy doing is gardening. I like to set the tables up for breakfast so they're pretty and not all matchy-matchy. So I think I like it to look inviting with flowers. That's kind of what I do. And I love talking to the guests. I do a lot of the marketing and the PR and social media. There's a lot to do with guests before they arrive. They don't just come. That's not the first time we've connected with them. We want to plan their time that they're with us if they want us to, particularly with, final exercises or reunions or football weekends. Wedding guests have been starting to stay with us more and more. And so those type of groups, require a lot more preparation and work, but it's fun for me to put that together. A lot of people want recommendations. They want you to plan things out for them. They want to know where to go to have fun or wineries. And so making those relationships and connections with our area people is just so much fun.
That's great. I mean, it sounds like such a personal guest experience.
We were on Airbnb for the first few months because we just thought we'd do that. And we realized very quickly that that was not the style we wanted. We want to see our people. We get people who are interested in historical homes, or they've had one or renovated one themselves. They are interested in coming to an area that has a lot of that surrounding. And they want to hear our story too.
Yeah, there aren't too many historical places to stay around here. It's like you're a guest of our house. Almost all the furnishings are sourced from the 18th century, very early 19th century. I've got a very beautiful couch in the parlor that was built about 1760. It belonged to Billy Rao in New Orleans and tells a story.
I'd love to hear more about the antiques and decorative arts. Something that I've been noticing is that there's definitely been a kind of aesthetic movement in my generation towards chic, sleek minimalism. And I'm noticing that more and more young folks are interested in ornamentation. They might call it maximalism. Is this something that you all have sort of picked up on as well?
We've had people who are interested in art stay with us too, and they recognize a lot of what he has found and what we found throughout the years in New Orleans, which we have gone to for years and years.
I don't buy many things from antique stores. It's mainly been from auctions in the area, and a lot of it has been from Jeffrey Evans up in Mount Crawford.
Pam, do you have any favorite pieces?
I love the prints that we have from New Orleans.
Yeah, there are actually some early 18th century large engravings of the fountains at Versailles, and they've been colorized.
We have an old piano, too.
A square piano from about 1812.
Wow. So guests can play a 19th century piano, maybe?
It wants to be played. It needs to be played.
Are there any pieces that you passed up that you can't forget, that you wish you had pulled the trigger on buying?
God, there's been dozens and dozens of pieces that I didn't pass up. They passed me because the price got too high. And there's some pieces I just forgot about the auction. And it seems like if you miss something, there's always something better that comes along. And that's a good way to look at life as well. I decorated the way I want it, not the way someone else or I think our guests would want it. I picked out the colors and everything because it's my home and our family's home. And we have guests that come visit us. But that's just my style. People are blown away at how beautiful it is, and they think we had a decorator and so forth, and it's me.
But it's also allowed us to retire early, and to do something we like to do. So I like to be around people and engage with people. He is good at it too. He didn't think he was going to be good at it. He said, "You're going to be the face of this whole thing." And I said, "Well," and it turned out that really what the guests want to know is what everything that he has in his head. We've just met the most interesting people from all over the world.
Some of them, they're just for themselves to have a weekend and don't want to be bothered. But some people just want to really get to know you.
Have you thought about what it meant to be an innkeeper at the time that the house was built, even if it wasn't an inn at the time?
It was a different deal.
How so?
Well, mainly they were very close to the roads. They were taverns, and people would just stop in there on their travels, and you give them a good meal and give them a room upstairs.
So at the time, historically, it might be more closely tied to the modes of travel as people kind of go about their business and need to move from one place to another, travel slower, they need to stop along the way, whereas today it's their daily lives that are busy. And when they want to travel, it's for leisure and pleasure.
I think the innkeepers back then were much busier than we are
Right.
doing the business.
When our daughter, she's 26 now, but when she was like 10 or so, we stayed in a lot of bed and breakfast. That was always our place of choice. In Savannah, a lot, in Charleston and Natchez. We liked that kind of travel where we could go into somebody's house and feel like you're kind of transported back into time. If you're personable and you want to be around people, it's not a hard thing to do. It's a very natural, easy thing to do.
One that made a real impact on me was a house in Natchez. It had been in the family for I think 8 generations. And it was their family home, and it was decorated with beautiful antiques throughout. And you were just like a guest of the family, and that's the way we try to do it.
Have you both thought about the upcoming anniversary at all for the 250th? I mean, it's Thomas Jefferson's year. Albemarle County is going to have a big place in that commemoration.
Yeah, I think we're starting to work with the chamber on that to do mini tours. We'll probably participate in some things at Stratford Hall, which is another historic landmark or home of the Lees that we support. We've offered to do whatever we can.
Being one of the very few historic houses in the area you can stay at, I'm getting more and more knowledgeable of the history of the area. I'm working now to put it on the historical registry, but it's a long process.
For this podcast project, we're also talking with Olivia Brown, who's the new executive director of the Charlottesville Albemarle Historical Society. And I wonder if they might be able to help with this kind of sourcing of historical information.
They actually have a file with a lot of pictures of the house from the 60s and 70s, I believe. The Historical Society, actually, they had a program at our house.
We had Richard Guy Wilson there and a guitar player, and we did tours.
Well, I love that it's so many things at once. It is itself a historic object. As a house, it's filled with decorative arts that are historic and solid and valuable. It's a community space for thinking about history and our history in the region. And of course, it sounds like a wonderful place to rest your head.
I know we do want to share it with the community more. We're trying to think of ways to do that. We've had afternoon teas and flower cutting classes and watercolor and things like that.
So maybe if folks have ideas for historic partnerships, they can find you on Instagram.
You can find us on Instagram, or you can go to our website. You could just call me.
Oh, thank you, Pam. I've learned so much. I know there's so much more that we could talk about the history of the house and the region.
Just come, we'll show you.
After our conversation, I was most interested in this aesthetic conviction that they have about the house and what to put in it. It seems to me that their definition of good taste and what's beautiful is really pegged to the antique decorative arts, especially of the 19th century. During our interview, I remember mentioning the phrase mid-century modern. I wish you could have all seen the grimace that Pam made when I uttered that phrase. It's really antithetical to their aesthetic taste. As a historian, I wondered also, why not renovate the house or unrenovate it, as it were, to how it was before those 1930s renovations, electricity and running water notwithstanding. It seems to me that our sense of the revolutionary period is going to be refracted through this prism of the 1920s and 30s and different perspectives on that period as well. You can see more about Pam and William's house at hollymeadhouse.com. That's HOLLYMEADHOUSE.com. And you can find them on Instagram at hollymeadhouse1780. I'm Ben Bernard. Thanks for listening.
Founding Footprints is a VA 250 project. America, made in Virginia. This podcast is a production of the Virginia Audio Collective at WTJU 91.1 FM, hosted by Dr. Benjamin Bernard, with sound design by Sage Tanguay, editing by Ella Powell, and music provided by Blue Dot Sessions. If you'd like to explore the history of Charlottesville and Albemarle County, you can find more information at visitcharlottesville.org. Virginia is for history lovers.